Hey, you pathetic, sickly woman. I've taken care of the divorce papers. This house, everything in it, and the expensive car are all coming to me. When this is all over, I'm marrying my girlfriend. My husband's voice echoed in the room as he announced our separation and threw me out while I was gravely ill. He took everything, thinking he had won it all. He thought he was the victor, but he was mistaken. In a few days, he would be the one calling me, crying. Before the story begins, please comment with the city and state you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help our channel grow and bring you more stories. Clara lay in the vast, king-sized bed that felt as cold as a block of ice, yet her entire body was on fire with fever. The thin nightgown she usually wore around the house was soaked with sweat, and her throat was dry and raw. Every breath was a sharp, stabbing pain. She had been bedridden for 2 days, completely helpless. Earlier that morning, she had pleaded with her husband, Ethan, to buy her some fever reducers and antibiotics. But now it was night, and he still wasn't home. The large house was silent, eerily so. The only sound was the soft ticking of the wall clock in the living room, as if counting down the last vestiges of her patience. Clara tried to reach for the glass of water on the bedside table, but her hands trembled uncontrollably. The glass slipped, falling onto the thick carpet and spilling the little water that remained. Clara closed her eyes, fighting back a wave of frustration. Ethan had changed over the past year, ever since he was promoted to vice president at his firm. He had become arrogant, often coming home late and blaming her for the smallest things. It had gotten worse 3 months ago when Clara developed a persistent cough and began to tire easily. Ethan never showed a shred of sympathy. Instead, he called her a sickly woman, conveniently forgetting that Clara was the wife who had been with him since they had nothing. Since they lived in a tiny, cramped apartment in the valley. The sound of a car pulling into the garage rumbled through the house. A sliver of relief washed over Clara. Ethan was finally home. He must have the medicine. She struggled to sit up, leaning her aching back against the headboard. She waited for him to open the door and bring her the relief she desperately needed. The front door slammed shut downstairs, followed by heavy, rapid footsteps. Those weren't the steps of a concerned husband. They were the steps of an angry man. The bedroom door flew open, revealing Ethan's imposing figure. He was still in his crisp business shirt, his hair perfectly coiffed, his face handsome. But the look he threw at Clara was one of pure disgust. In his hands, there was no pharmacy bag. He was holding a thick manila folder. Ethan. Clara's voice was raspy and weak. My medicine. My head is killing me. Honey, I have a fever. Ethan laughed, a harsh, dissonant sound. Medicine? I've got something better than medicine. This is the cure for us. The cure that will heal my life. He strode forward and tossed the folder onto the blanket covering her legs. Clara flinched, staring at the folder in confusion. What is this, honey? Open it, so you don't die of curiosity, Ethan replied, his tone cold and sharp. Using what little strength she had left, Clara picked up the folder. Her fingers trembled as she fumbled with the clasp, pulling out a sheaf of papers. On the top line, she read the words, Petition for Dissolution of Marriage. Clara's world stopped. The air was stolen from her lungs. The burning heat of her fever was instantly replaced by an icy chill that seeped into her bones. She looked up at Ethan, searching his eyes for any hint of doubt, but all she found was triumphant satisfaction. Divorce, she whispered, her voice cracking with disbelief. Why the surprise? Ethan sneered. He sat on the edge of the bed, but far from her, as if her sickness were contagious. Hey, you pathetic, sickly woman. Did you really think I wanted to spend the rest of my life taking care of a useless invalid like you? I've arranged everything. Ethan stood up again, pacing the room like a triumphant orator. I'm sick and tired of it. Sick of hearing you cough day and night. Sick of seeing you lying in bed with no energy. You're a burden, a dead weight on my life. Honey, what did I do wrong? Clara tried to speak, but tears were already welling in her eyes. Your mistake? Your mistake was being a nobody. You bring nothing to the table. Ethan gestured around the luxurious bedroom. Look at all of this. This house. All the expensive furniture. The sports car in the garage, it's all going to be mine. I worked for all of this. It's all in my name. Clara remained silent. Behind her tear-filled eyes, something flickered that Ethan couldn't read. He mistook her silence for defeat. Are you listening? You won't get a single penny of community property. Don't even dream about it. You brought nothing into this house. and you'll take nothing with you when you leave." Then, Ethan delivered the words that shattered what was left of Clara's heart. "When this is over," he said, his face lighting up, "I'm marrying my girlfriend, Valerie. She's healthier, more beautiful, and most importantly, she understands my position as a successful man. Unlike you." Clara squeezed her eyes shut. So there was another woman. The name was unfamiliar, but the pain was devastatingly real. "I don't want to see your face in this house by tomorrow morning," Ethan added cruelly. "I'm giving you until sunrise. Get out. Don't take anything but the clothes on your sickly back." He looked at Clara, who was now weeping silently, hot tears streaming down her pale cheeks. "Your crying won't change a thing. The papers are filed. It'll be a quick process." He turned and straightened his tie. "I'm staying at Valerie's condo tonight. I can't stand to be under the same roof as you. I'll send someone in the morning to make sure you're gone." Clara wanted to scream, to curse him, but all her strength was gone. All she could do was watch her husband's back as he disappeared through the door. The bedroom door slammed, followed by the thud of the front door. Moments later, the roar of his sports car faded into the night. Clara was left alone, gravely ill, divorced, and evicted. She broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. The pain in her heart was far more intense than the fever consuming her body. She cried for her shattered marriage and for the cruel betrayal. After several minutes, the sobbing stopped. Clara took a deep, shuddering breath and wiped her tears away fiercely. In the midst of her pain, something else emerged, something cold, hard, and calculating. Her once pale face hardened with resolve. She reached under the pillow, not her usual one, but an extra one she always kept there. Her fingers found a hard, thin object. She pulled it out. It was a brand new, top-of-the-line smartphone, far more sophisticated than the old one on her nightstand. That phone was her one secret, something Ethan never knew existed. There was no lock pattern. It opened with her fingerprint. The screen lit up, showing a blank wallpaper. There were no social media apps, only a few encrypted business applications. Clara opened the single contact saved under the name Director Susan Pierce. She pressed the call button. Her heart was pounding, not from sickness, but from a cold fury that was beginning to build. The call was answered on the first ring. A calm, professional woman's voice came through the line. "Good evening, Miss Clara. You're calling at this hour. Are you all right? I heard you were unwell." Clara took a deep breath, trying to steady her trembling voice. "Susan," she said, her voice still raspy, but now chillingly cold. "Activate the contingency plan." There was a brief pause on the other end. Then Director Pierce's voice turned serious. "I understand. Ma'am, what happened?" "I've been thrown out," Clara said flatly. "Ethan is divorcing me. He thinks I'm a useless, broke, sickly woman." "My God, the audacity of that man," Director Pierce hissed. "Susan, I feel terrible. My fever is dangerously high. I need a medical evacuation. I don't want a public hospital. Come to the house and get me. Bring the private medical team from the Sterling Clinic. No sirens. Keep it quiet. I don't want anyone to know." "Understood, ma'am. The VVIP medical team will be there in 20 minutes. I'll come myself. Can you hold on?" Clara looked at the divorce papers on the blanket. With her remaining strength, she crumpled them in her fist. "I have to, Susan. The game is just beginning." She ended the call. Her body still shivered with fever, but her eyes now gleamed sharply in the darkness of the room. Ethan had just made the biggest mistake of his life. He hadn't just thrown out his wife. He had thrown out the owner of Clarity Holdings, a global corporation with a monthly net profit of over $1.5 million. Clara waited in the deafening silence. Each tick of the clock on the wall felt like a hammer blow. She clutched her secret phone tightly, her mind racing. She feared Ethan might suddenly return, feared the medical team would be delayed. Her body oscillated between shivering chills and burning heat. Exactly 25 minutes later, her phone vibrated silently. A text from Director Pierce. "We're here. The front door is unlocked. The team is coming in." Clara let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. She had expected Ethan wouldn't lock the door. He was too arrogant to think his dying wife could do anything. With the last of her energy, Clara threw off the covers. Her feet touched the cool carpet, and her head spun violently. She nearly collapsed but held onto the bedpost. She had to leave. With trembling hands, she took a long coat from the back of the door and put it on. She refused to leave this house in a pathetic state. She would not let Ethan take her dignity. The bedroom door opened slowly. Clara startled for a moment, then saw two people in discreet black uniforms, not the standard white of nurses. They moved quickly and silently. Behind them was Director Pierce, a woman in her 50s with a strong but kind face, dressed in a sharp business suit. Her expression was one of deep concern when she saw Clara's condition. "Miss Clara," she whispered. "I'm ready, Susan," Clara replied weakly. "Help Miss Clara onto the portable stretcher," Director Pierce commanded the team. They immediately unfolded a stretcher and gently helped Clara lie down. "Ma'am, we're going to give you an injection to temporarily bring the fever down for the journey," one of the medics said. Clara just nodded. She felt a slight prick in her arm, and soon, a cool sensation spread through her. As they carried her out, Clara took one last look at the bedroom sealing the room she had decorated herself, the room that had been a silent witness to Ethan's transformation. They carried her through the luxurious living room. Her eyes fixed on the large wedding photo on the wall, a picture of her and Ethan, smiling happily. The Ethan of the past, the one she knew, who was gentle and loving. Now, that photo was a mockery. "Leave everything. Don't take a thing," Clara whispered. "Of course, ma'am. We need nothing from this place," Director Pierce replied firmly. They exited through the main door. In front of the house, there was no flashy ambulance. Instead, a blacked-out Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van, looking like a vehicle from a presidential motorcade, was parked. The side door slid open to reveal a fully equipped VVIP emergency medical bay. Meanwhile, in a high-end condo in downtown Los Angeles, Ethan was laughing loudly. He poured a glass of expensive scotch for Valerie, a young, beautiful woman in a slinky nightgown. "So, tomorrow, we officially own that mansion, babe?" Valerie asked flirtatiously. "Of course. I threw her out. That sickly woman won't put up a fight. She has nothing. Tomorrow, I'm changing all the locks. And the day after, we can start remodeling the master bedroom," Ethan said, wrapping his arm around Valerie. "How exciting. Finally, it's all ours," Valerie squealed. Ethan raised his glass. "To our new life," he said. His old cell phone lay on the table, on silent mode. He didn't want to be disturbed by any calls from that sickly woman. Inside the medical transport, moving smoothly through the night, Clara was being stabilized. A doctor waiting inside the vehicle immediately started an IV drip. "Temperature is 103.8. It's a severe infection, but we're addressing it. We need to get her to the clinic for intensive care," the doctor said. Director Pierce sat beside Clara's bed, looking at her pale face with concern. "Ma'am, you need to be strong. We have everything prepared at the Sterling Clinic." Clara closed her eyes. The fever medication was starting to work, and the dizziness was subsiding. Her mind drifted back 5 years, to the beginning of this secret. Ethan had just been fired from his first real job, and was depressed for months. Clara, then a simple homemaker, tried to lift his spirits. Ethan was sensitive about money and, out of pride, forbade her from working. "Your job is at home. I'll be the one to earn the money," he'd said. But Clara, who secretly held a degree in pharmacology, was bored. She had ideas. In her free time, she began experimenting in their small kitchen, not with cooking, but with formulating skincare products using organic herbal ingredients from her grandmother's old recipes. She used all her personal savings to buy high-quality raw materials. After months of trial and error, she created a facial serum and a brightening cream with astonishing effects. The results on her own skin were incredible. Ethan, busy with his job search, paid her no mind. All he knew was that his wife was playing around in the kitchen. Clara took a leap of faith and opened a small online shop. At first, she only sold to acquaintances, but word of her products spread like wildfire. Orders poured in. Around that time, Ethan found a new job with a decent salary and started to become arrogant. He would often find Clara busy on her old phone late at night, processing customer orders. "I give you money, and you're still glued to that phone like you have nothing better to do," he had yelled one night. Clara just stayed silent. She had just closed a deal worth $25,000 that evening. The turning point was when she met Director Susan Pierce at a seminar for female entrepreneurs. Clara attended as a participant, and Susan was the keynote speaker. After the event, Clara mustered the courage to approach her, showing her the products and a handwritten business proposal. Susan was amazed by Clara's potential. "This product is brilliant, Miss Clara, and your business strategy is incredibly sound," she had said. To make a long story short, Susan agreed to join, not as an investor, but as a partner. She wanted to get back into the corporate world and saw Clara's vision. They founded Clarity Holdings, or CH. Clara was the owner and the brain behind the products. Susan was the CEO, the public face of the company. Clara's one condition was that her name remain completely anonymous. She wanted to remain Ethan's ordinary wife. Ironically, she hoped that with Susan's network helping Ethan succeed at his new job, he would become a better husband, but she was wrong. The more successful Ethan became, the more arrogant he grew. Meanwhile, CH exploded. From skincare, they expanded into luxury fashion. The high-end clothing and accessories designed by Clara became hits in both local and international markets: New York, Paris, Shanghai, and Tokyo. The monthly net profit of $1.5 million was a conservative figure for Clara's personal income, separate from the company's revenue, which was 10 times larger. Clara kept all this wealth hidden, living a simple life. Even when Ethan wanted to buy the luxury house and sports car, he had to take out a massive bank loan. He boasted that he got the loan because of his stellar performance at work. What he didn't know was that his business loan, which had been on the verge of default a year ago, had been secretly bought in its entirety by an investment firm, a subsidiary of CH. The luxury house and sports car he was so proud of, the collateral for that loan, were no longer legally owned by the bank, but by CH, which meant they were owned by Clara. Clara opened her eyes. The medical vehicle was entering the VVIP area of the hospital. "Susan," she called out, her voice still weak, but her gaze as sharp as steel. "Yes, Miss Clara?" Susan moved closer. "Ethan took the house and the car. He said they're all his, in his name." Susan smiled a knowing smile. "He seems to have forgotten who paid off his business loan with Bank of America a year ago when he was about to go bankrupt. He's forgotten that the collateral for that loan was the very house and sports car he brags about every day," Clara continued. "And he certainly doesn't know," Susan added, "that the investment company that bought all his debt from the bank is Clarity Holdings." A moment of silence hung in the air. The doctor and nurse pretended not to hear the secret conversation. "Susan," Clara said, "begin the asset recovery process." "When should I start, ma'am?" Clara watched the streetlights pass by the window. "He threw me out tonight. He'll wake up tomorrow thinking I'm a beggar on the street. I want him to enjoy his victory with that woman for a little while. Give him 3 days." Susan nodded. 3 days. We'll consider it the last free rent he gets from us. After 3 days, our legal team will move. On the 3rd day, precisely, we will reclaim everything that is rightfully yours, ma'am." "Good. For now, focus on getting me well. I need to be healthy to see the look on his face when it all comes crashing down." The medical vehicle stopped at a private entrance. A team of specialists was already waiting. Clara was moved to a presidential treatment suite. Far away, Ethan slept soundly in Valerie's arms, dreaming of his wonderful new life, completely unaware that it was set to end in exactly 3 days. Victory was sweet for Ethan. He woke up in Valerie's expensive condo, the morning sun streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, bathing the room in golden light. Valerie was still asleep beside him, her arm draped tightly around him. He looked at her beautiful face and smiled with satisfaction. He had succeeded. He had removed the dead weight from his life, that sickly woman, Clara. He imagined her at that moment, probably crying at a bus station, trying to get back to her parents' poor house. Ethan chuckled. Not his problem anymore. His new, brilliant life was just beginning. "Good morning, babe," Valerie's soft voice murmured as she opened her eyes. "What time is it? Has that woman left our house yet?" "I'm sure she's gone," he answered confidently. "I told her to be out before sunrise. She has no choice. No money, no power. Just a weak woman who depends on me." Valerie smiled broadly and sat up, her silk nightgown slipping to reveal her shoulders. "Great. I'm so excited to move in. This condo is nice, but that house is a palace, and I'll be the queen." "Of course, babe. Anything for you," Ethan said. "Come on, get ready. We'll have breakfast at our new home. I'll tell the cleaning lady to throw out anything Clara left behind. I don't want a single trace of her." An hour later, Ethan's expensive sports car pulled smoothly into the driveway of the large house. He stepped out, wearing sunglasses like a king, with Valerie clinging to his arm arrogantly. "Welcome to our palace, my queen," he declared as he opened the door. They stepped inside. It was strange. The house was too quiet, but also immaculate. Too clean. Ethan had expected Clara to leave a mess, throw things around, or at least leave signs of her tears. But no, he went to the master bedroom and opened the door, his heart beating a little faster. The room was perfectly tidy. The bed where Clara had been lying ill yesterday was now neatly made with crisp, white sheets. There was no trace of medicine or a broken glass. Even the carpet next to the bed was dry and spotless. Maybe she cleaned up first, Ethan muttered, confused. Good. At least she made herself useful one last time, Valerie said from behind him. Ethan felt a slight unease. It was odd. How could a woman with a high fever have made the room this clean? And where were the dirty linens? He checked the closet. Clara's simple clothes, her long dresses and scarves, were gone. The drawers were empty. She's really gone, Ethan said, finally feeling a sense of relief. He dismissed his unease. She probably called a cab and took a small suitcase. A clean break was for the best. Of course. It's clean. Now, let's measure this room. Valerie exclaimed with excitement. I want to replace this bed. It's so old-fashioned. I want a round bed with a canopy. And these walls need to be repainted. I'm thinking gold leaf. Valerie ran through the house, her shrill voice breaking the silence, pointing at furniture. This sofa is ugly. Replace it. This painting is tacky. Throw it out. This kitchen needs a complete renovation. I want an imported kitchen set from Italy. Ethan just smiled. Yes, honey. I'll replace everything. Anything for you? Tonight, we'll celebrate. I'll invite our closest friends and order the most extravagant catering in the city. He took out his phone and called his favorite premium catering service, ordering an expensive menu of imported Wagyu beef, fresh seafood platters, and premium European wines. Understood, Mr. Walker. The total for the order is $15,000. As per our policy, we require a 50% down payment now, the catering staff said over the phone. Of course. Send me the link. I'll pay with my primary credit card, Ethan said boastfully. He sat on the sofa Valerie hated and opened his banking app to pay the $7,500 down payment. He entered his credit card number and hit pay. After a moment, a red notification appeared. Transaction denied. Ethan's brow furrowed. That was strange. The card had a 6-figure limit. Probably a bad signal, he muttered. He tried again. Transaction denied. Babe, what's taking so long? Valerie called out, busy taking selfies in the living room. Just a second, babe. Looks like the bank's network is having issues, Ethan said, trying to stay calm. He was starting to feel embarrassed. He tried another credit card from the same bank. Declined. A cold sweat began to form on his brow. This couldn't be happening. He was a VIP client. Why were his cards being declined? He tried his debit card. Declined. Insufficient funds. Ethan's eyes widened. Insufficient funds? Impossible. His paycheck had just been deposited 3 days ago. He quickly closed the payment app and opened his main mobile banking app, his heart pounding. He entered his password. The screen loaded, and then a message appeared. Access blocked. Please contact your nearest branch. Ethan froze. Panic began to spread through his chest. This was a disaster. He couldn't access his payroll account. He couldn't use his credit cards. Ethan, the caterer just called me. They said the payment is still being rejected. This is so embarrassing. Valerie whined, pouting. Calm down, babe. Calm down. Ethan was panicking. He remembered he had an emergency account with a different bank, one he rarely used. It didn't have much, but there should be a few $1,000s in it. With trembling hands, he tried to pay the down payment using that account. Success. Ethan breathed a sigh of relief, his pride momentarily saved in front of Valerie. See? Just a network problem, he said with a forced smile. It's all set. The catering will arrive at 7 p.m. Valerie's mood brightened instantly. Great. I need to get ready and head to the salon. As soon as Valerie left, Ethan's smile vanished. His face was pale. There was a huge problem. Why was his primary account blocked? Could this have something to do with Clara? Impossible. That foolish woman couldn't pull off something like this. He promised himself he would call the bank first thing tomorrow and scream at them, demand compensation for this humiliation. As he paced the room, fighting his anxiety, the doorbell rang. Ethan opened it to find a uniformed courier holding a large manila envelope. Mr. Ethan Walker? Yes, that's me. Registered mail. Please sign here. Ethan signed, closed the door, and looked at the envelope. The sender was an expensive-looking law firm, Pierce, Roth and Associates. He assumed it was the final approval from the court for his divorce. He opened it eagerly, but the contents were not from a family court. It was a demand letter. His eyes flew across the formal, rigid sentences. Dear Mr. Walker, on behalf of our client, CH Holdings, we are notifiable you that you are in breach of contract regarding your business line of credit. The total outstanding principal of $3.5 million is now due and payable. We are giving you three days to settle the full amount. Failure to do so will result in immediate foreclosure proceedings on your assets, specifically 1 residential unit at 12 Acacia Drive and 1 luxury sports car. The glass Ethan was holding slipped from his hand and shattered on the expensive marble floor. Sweat poured down his face. 3 days. $3.5 million. Foreclosure. Impossible, he whispered, trembling. I just made a payment last week. What breach? And what the hell is CH Holdings? His victory celebration had just turned into the beginning of a nightmare. That night, amidst the music and laughter with his friends and Valerie, Ethan could only manage a forced smile. His mind was in turmoil. He felt an invisible noose slowly tightening around his neck. Ethan didn't sleep a wink. Beside him, Valerie slept soundly, exhausted from their party. But in Ethan's mind, the words from the demand letter spun on a loop. $3.5 million. 3 days. Foreclosure. CH Holdings. At the first light of dawn, Ethan got up, his body aching and his eyes bloodshot. He didn't bother showering, just splashed water on his face and threw on some clothes. He no longer cared about his appearance. At 8 a.m. sharp, as the bank opened, he sped toward the branch where he was a VIP client. He had to fix this mess. It had to be an administrative error. He bypassed the line of regular customers and went straight to the VIP services desk. I'm Ethan Walker. I need to speak with the branch manager. Now, he said loudly, slapping his VIP card on the counter. A startled staff member quickly ushered him into a private room. 5 minutes later, a well-dressed customer relations manager, not the branch manager, came to see him. Good morning, Mr. Walker. How can I help you? Let me just pull up your account. Cut the crap, Ethan snapped. Explain to me why all my credit cards are blocked, why my payroll account is frozen, and why I received a ridiculous demand letter for breach of contract. The manager calmly looked at his computer screen. Apologies for the inconvenience, Mr. Walker. Let me see. Interesting. What's interesting? Ethan yelled. The manager looked up. Sir, we didn't block your accounts or credit cards. In fact, your balances are now zero, and your credit limits are completely maxed out. Impossible, Ethan shouted. My salary is in the 6 figures, and my credit limit is in the millions. I didn't spend anything yesterday. That's correct, sir. However, our system registered an emergency automatic collection on your business line of credit last night at 12:01 a.m. This collection drained the entire balance of your payroll account and simultaneously exhausted the remaining limits on all of your credit cards. Ethan went pale. Emergency collection? On whose authority? The manager looked at his screen again. Not our authority, sir. It was an order from the new owner of your line of credit. New owner? According to our data, your $3.5 million business loan with our bank was sold 6 months ago to a private equity firm called CH Holdings. We now only serve as the managing agency for your monthly installment payments. Ethan's chest tightened. CH Holdings. Why would they do this? I haven't missed a payment. The manager shook his head. That's beyond our purview, sir. According to the notification we received from CH Holdings last night, you were declared in breach of contract under the loan sale agreement. In the event of a breach, CH Holdings has the right to forcibly collect funds from your associated accounts as an initial penalty. And it appears that's exactly what they've done. Ethan felt weak, gripping the edge of the desk. How? How is there a breach? We don't know the details, sir. It should be explained in the demand letter you received. You'll have to speak directly with CH Holdings or their lawyers, the manager said with the emotionless tone of someone discussing the weather. Ethan stumbled out of the bank like a drunk man, the world spinning around him. He sat in his sports car, the car that would be repossessed in less than 3 days, with trembling hands. CH Holdings, that name again. He pulled out his phone and searched for CH Holdings online. What appeared was a corporate titan. Clarity Holdings, a conglomerate in luxury fashion, global skincare, and real estate. Its logo was everywhere. Ethan had seen it before, but had never paid it any attention. Why? Why would a company this massive buy my little loan? he muttered to himself, desperate. Then, he remembered the law firm's name. Pierce, Roth and Associates. He summoned his courage and called the number on the document. Good morning. This is Ethan Walker. I received a demand letter on behalf of CH Holdings. There must be a mistake. I did not breach my contract. The voice on the other end was calm and cold. There is no mistake, Mr. Walker. Our client is acting within their legal rights. You violated Clause 11, Section B of the loan agreement you signed. Clause 11, Section B? What's that? If you're too lazy to read the documents you signed, Mr. Walker, that clause states your obligation to maintain familial stability and refrain from immoral or dishonorable acts that could negatively impact the image associated with the business loan. Ethan fell silent, feeling the blood rush to his head. That's a ridiculous clause. It has nothing to do with debt. It does now, Mr. Walker. When your loan was sold to our client, all clauses, especially that morality clause, became active. Our client is a company that highly values family principles. Your actions of filing for divorce and evicting your gravely ill wife, Miss Clara, to live with another woman, constitute a severe violation of Clause 11, Section B. Ethan couldn't breathe. How? How did you know? We have irrefutable evidence, Mr. Walker. Photographs, audio recordings, and witnesses. We are aware you threw your wife out 2 nights ago. That is what triggered this breach claim. Ethan's knees went weak. Clara. This was all because of Clara. But how? How did Clara know CH Holdings? What do they want? Give me more time. I'll make the installment payment, Ethan begged, his voice trembling with fear. It's too late. Our client is not interested in installments. As the demand letter states, you have, let's see, 2 days and 8 hours left to pay the $3.5 million in full. Otherwise, our execution team will arrive to repossess your house and car. The line went dead. Ethan threw his phone against the dashboard and screamed. $3.5 million in 2 days? Impossible. His salary was frozen. His only assets were the house and car that, it turned out, were never truly his. He tried to think clearly. Clara. This was Clara's doing. But how? Did she work as a janitor at CH Holdings and complain to her boss? It was illogical. He tried to find out who owned CH Holdings. He opened a business news portal. The owner was a mysterious figure. The company was run by a CEO named Director Susan Pierce. Susan. Ethan's brow furrowed. The name was familiar. He suddenly remembered. Years ago, Clara had told him about a friend from her church group, a wonderful woman named Susan. He had always laughed it off. Just a bunch of gossiping housewives, he'd said. Could Clara's church friend be the CEO of CH Holdings? His head throbbed. This was too complicated. He had to find Clara. He had to beg Clara to withdraw her complaint to Director Susan. Yes, that was the only way. He started the car immediately. He needed to find out where Clara was. He had to go to her parents' house in Bakersfield. He had to go now. As he pulled out of the bank's parking lot, his phone rang. It was Valerie. He ignored it. She called again, relentlessly. Annoyed, he answered. What? Babe, where are you? Why are you shouting? You need to come here. The credit card you gave me was also declined at the salon. It was so humiliating. Do you even have any money left? Ethan slammed his fist on the steering wheel. I told you. I have an emergency. Use your own money for once. What? My money? No way. You transfer me some right now. I said I have an emergency. Ethan hung up. At the salon, Valerie stared at her phone, stunned. It was the first time Ethan had ever yelled at her. She started to feel that something was seriously wrong. The rich man she had been so proud of was suddenly having problems with all his cards. Suspicion began to grow in her mind. Ethan no longer cared about Valerie. He floored the gas pedal of his sports car. He had to find Clara. He would get on his knees and beg if he had to. He didn't know that the Clara he was looking for was already recovering from her illness, sitting in her office on the top floor of the CH Holdings building, monitoring his every panicked move through reports from her legal team. There was no escape for Ethan. The second day was hell. His trip to Clara's parents' house in Bakersfield was a complete failure. The house was small and modest, just as he'd expected. But Clara's parents, though they looked simple, regarded him with a mixture of cold anger and pity. Clara wasn't there. They didn't know where she was. You threw my daughter out when she was sick, didn't you? Clara's father asked, his voice shaking with suppressed rage. And now you come looking for her? Get out of here. Don't you ever set foot on this property again. Ethan returned to the city, defeated. The little money left in his emergency account was spent on gas. That night, he and Valerie had a massive fight. Valerie demanded to know what was going on. On the verge of a breakdown, Ethan confessed there was an administrative problem, and his accounts were temporarily frozen. Valerie wasn't stupid. She had seen the demand letter on his desk. 3 days. Millions of dollars. Foreclosure. You're bankrupt, Ethan. Valerie shrieked hysterically. It's temporary. I'll fix it. This is all Clara's fault. Ethan yelled in frustration. I don't care whose fault it is. I'm not going to live with a broke loser. That night, they slept in the cold, luxurious bed, back to back. Ethan didn't sleep. The countdown in his head ticked relentlessly. Tomorrow was the third day. The morning of the third day was the most terrifying of Ethan's life. The sun rose, but for him, it felt like the end of the world. At 9 a.m., as he and Valerie were having a silent, tense breakfast, the doorbell rang. They looked at each other, their faces pale. Don't open it, Ethan whispered. Pretend we're not here. The doorbell rang again, louder this time, accompanied by forceful knocks. Mr. Walker, we know you're in there. This is the execution team from Pierce, Roth, and Associates. Ethan's heart stopped. Valerie started to cry in fear. What are we going to do, Ethan? What are we going to do? She sobbed. Panicked, Ethan ran to the back door, thinking of escaping through the garden. But when he opened the kitchen door, 2 burly security guards were already standing there. Please remain inside, sir, they said firmly. Ethan was trapped. He returned to the living room just as the legal team successfully opened the front door with a locksmith they had brought. A man in a sharp suit entered, holding a folder. Behind him were several court sheriffs carrying notice of levy stickers. Mr. Walker, your time is up. Exactly 3 days, the lawyer said coldly. By order of the court, we are beginning foreclosure proceedings on this house and all property within to settle the debt owed to our client, CH Holdings. No, please, give me more time. Ethan fell to his knees, his arrogance completely gone. I'll pay, I promise. Just give me 1 more week. The lawyer shook his head. You were given sufficient time. Our team will begin their work now. You may only take the personal items you are wearing. You have 15 minutes to voluntarily vacate the property. 15 minutes, Valerie shrieked. In that moment, the reality of the situation hit her. She looked at Ethan, kneeling on the floor, crying like a child. The man she thought was a king was now a beggar. Valerie's face hardened. She was not going down with this sinking ship. Without a word, she ran to her room. Valerie, where are you going? Help me, Ethan cried out, bewildered. The sheriffs began to move through the house, indifferent to the drama. They started slapping levied by CH Holdings stickers on the flat-screen TV, the expensive sofa, the pricey paintings. Outside, the sound of a tow truck arriving to take Ethan's sports car could be heard. 5 minutes later, Valerie came downstairs. She wasn't crying anymore. She was pulling 2 large suitcases, which she must have packed in a hurry. She ignored Ethan, who was staring at her blankly, and walked straight to the door. Valerie, you're leaving me? Ethan shouted, his voice broken. Valerie stopped and turned, her face a mask of contempt. Leaving you? Of course. I have no interest in living with a broke loser like you. I thought you were a king, but you're just a clown. Enjoy your ruin alone, Ethan. I've already called a cab. Goodbye. Valerie walked out, pulling her suitcases, stepping past the sheriffs without a second glance. Ethan was frozen, betrayed and abandoned, exactly as he had done to Clara 3 days ago. The difference was, Clara was sick when he'd thrown her out. Valerie was leaving him at the peak of his destruction. Your time is up, Mr. Walker, a security guard said, grabbing his arm. They dragged him out of his own house and threw him onto the hot pavement. He was still in his pajamas. He saw his beloved sports car being towed out of the garage. He saw the door to his house being chained and sealed. Everything was gone. In 3 days, Ethan sat on the curb, helpless, as passers-by stared. The once arrogant man was now a public spectacle. He was alone, with no money, no house, no one. In his abject terror and indescribable humiliation, only one name echoed in his mind, the source of it all. Clara. He fumbled in his pockets. His old phone was still there. He didn't know who else to call. He wanted to curse Clara. He needed to beg Clara. He didn't know. He just needed to vent. With trembling hands, he found Clara, wife in his contacts, and pressed the call button. He didn't expect her to answer. She had probably changed her number, or the phone was dead, but it rang. Once, twice, and on the third ring, she answered. Hello? The voice was Clara's, but it wasn't the weak, sickly voice he remembered. It was calm, clear, and cold. Ethan, who had intended to rage, suddenly felt small. He wept. He just broke down and sobbed, the cry of a defeated man. Clara, he shrieked hysterically. Clara, help me. Please. Clara, I don't know what happened. They took our house. They took the car. They threw me out. I'm on the street. Clara, why is this happening? On the top floor of the CH Holdings building, inside a VVIP treatment suite now converted into a temporary luxury office, Clara sat calmly. She was no longer bedridden. She was healthy, vibrant, and regal. An emerald green silk headscarf elegantly framed a face that now looked resolute. In front of her, Director Susan Pierce and several department heads were in a meeting. The old phone, which Clara had Susan retrieve from the house, vibrated on the table. The name Ethan flashed on the screen. The meeting paused. All eyes turned to Clara. She raised a hand, silencing everyone, then looked at Susan and gave a slight, knowing smile. She pressed the speakerphone button for everyone in the room to hear. Ethan's hysterical sobs immediately filled the conference room. Clara, help me. Please. Clara, I don't know what happened. They took our house. They took the car. They threw me out. I'm on the street. Clara, why is this happening? Clara waited for his sobs to subside, signaling for the others to remain quiet. The silence in the room was a stark contrast to Ethan's panicked voice on the phone. After he finished, Clara brought her lips close to the microphone. She replied in a calm, powerful voice, a voice Ethan had never heard before. Excuse me, who is this? There was a stunned silence on the other end. Ethan's sobs stopped abruptly. What? It's me, Clara. Ethan, your husband. Ah, Mr. Walker, Clara said in a disinterested tone, as if speaking to a stranger. I believe there's been a misunderstanding. First, you are no longer my husband. My divorce papers were filed this morning. Second, as for our house, 3 days ago, you made it very clear it was your house, didn't you? Ethan gasped for air, his throat suddenly dry. The voice was Clara's, but it wasn't his Clara. Not the weak woman he could trample on. This voice commanded authority. Clara, where are you? He whispered, terrified. What have you done? Your voice. You sound... Well, I'm in the middle of a very important meeting right now, Clara replied, leaning back in her chair and gazing at the city skyline through the massive glass window behind her. We're discussing our business expansion into the Middle East. Something you wouldn't understand. You know. Business. Ethan was bewildered. Clara, stop talking nonsense. Help me, he pleaded again. I know this is your doing. It must be that friend of yours from the church group. Director Susan, right? You complained to her. Please, tell her to stop all of this. I'll do anything. I'll take you back. I'll divorce Valerie, I promise. A cold, mocking laugh came through the speakerphone. It was Clara's laugh. Take me back? You think I would pick up the trash I've already thrown out? And, as for Valerie, you're too late, Ethan. She left you an hour ago, the moment the execution team arrived. My legal team just reported it to me. Ethan felt like a bucket of ice water had been dumped on him. Clara knew. She knew everything. She had been watching it all unfold. Who are you? Ethan whispered, his voice filled with a primal fear. The hair on the back of his neck stood on end. Who are you? Really, Clara? Clara smiled. Do you really want to know, Ethan? For all the years you were with me, you insulted me. You called me a sickly, broke woman who just played on her phone. You never once bothered to ask what I was actually doing on my phone. What do you mean? Clara gestured to Susan, who took over. Hello, Mr. Walker. You are speaking with the board of directors of Clarity Holdings. Ethan recognized the calm voice from the call about the demand letter. Director? Why do you have Clara's phone? What is your connection to my wife? Clara took the phone back. She's not just my friend, Ethan. She's my right hand, the CEO who runs my company for me. Silence. Ethan's mind struggled to process the information. You asked who I am, Clara continued, walking to the window, looking down at the street where Ethan was likely sitting like a beggar. You called the number of the poor wife you abandoned. But allow me to introduce myself formally. Clara's voice now resonated with absolute authority. Hello, Ethan. You're speaking to Clara, the sole owner, founder, and president of Clarity Holdings, the company with a monthly net profit of over $1.5 million that just repossessed all of its assets from you. The phone slipped from Ethan's hands, clattering onto the pavement. He froze, his eyes wide with terror, staring at the hot asphalt as if his breath had stopped. His world hadn't just been shattered, it had been obliterated. Ethan collapsed onto the dirty sidewalk, catatonic. His phone lay beside him, its screen cracked, but the call still connected. He could hear Clara's calm breathing on the other end, a stark contrast to the violent hammering of his own heart. Impossible, Ethan whispered, his voice broken in denial. This is a nightmare. Clara, you're lying, aren't you? This is all a lie. Clara's voice came through again, cold and emotionless. I don't have time for lies, Ethan. I'm a busy woman. But since today is the day of your ruin, I'll grant you a few more moments of my time. There was a brief pause. Ethan was still staring, catatonic, at the pavement. Lift your head, Ethan, Clara commanded. Look across the street, a little to your left. Slowly, like a broken robot, Ethan raised his head. His swollen eyes squinted against the harsh sunlight. Across the busy street, a magnificent blue glass skyscraper stood tall and proud. At its peak, two large, gleaming letters shone under the sun. CH. That building, Ethan whispered, his throat raw. Yes. Clarity Holdings, Clara replied. I'm on the top floor. I can see you perfectly from my window. You look rather pathetic on that sidewalk. The security guards are about to ask you to leave. Ethan swallowed hard, a cold dread creeping up his spine. Clara was watching him. Come to the lobby, she continued. I want to see you. I want to see with my own eyes how the face of such an arrogant man crumbles. The call disconnected. Ethan remained motionless for a full minute, his body paralyzed. He had nothing left. No house, no car, no Valerie. And now, even his pride was about to be pulverized. He had no choice. Where else could he go? A masochistic curiosity, mixed with a sliver of insane hope that he could still beg for mercy, got him to his feet. He stood up, trembling, his pajamas now filthy. He walked like a zombie toward the massive glass doors of the CH building, oblivious to the blaring car horns. The lobby was another world. The floors were imported, polished marble. An artificial waterfall cascaded down one wall. Dozens of immaculately dressed employees moved with purpose. The cold blast of the air conditioning hit his sweaty body, making him shiver. Ethan just stood in the middle of all the opulence, lost. He was a stain on a pristine canvas. A beautiful receptionist looked at him with a mixture of disgust and suspicion. "Excuse me, sir. Can I help you?" she asked, her tone clearly unwelcoming. I. Ethan stammered. "I want to see Clara." "Miss Clara?" The receptionist raised an eyebrow. "Our president, Miss Clara? Do you have an appointment?" "No, but she told me to come." "Tell her it's Ethan." "I'm sorry, sir. You can't enter without an appointment." The receptionist already had her hand on the phone, clearly about to call security. "Let him in." A firm voice cut through the tension. Ethan turned. Director Susan Pierce was standing there, flanked by two imposing security guards. Her face was calm, but her eyes sized him up with undisguised contempt. "So, you're Ethan." Ethan recognized the woman Clara's church friend, Aunt Susan. "Let me correct you," Susan said coldly. "I'm not her church friend. I'm her CEO. Now, follow me. President Clara is waiting." Ethan was led through the lobby without resistance. All eyes were on him, a disheveled man in pajamas being escorted by the CEO and security. The whispers started. He wanted to cover his face, but he had no pride left. They didn't take him to the main elevators. Susan had him wait in the VVIP waiting area in the center of the lobby. "Wait here. President Clara will come down." Ethan froze, his heart pounding so hard it hurt. He felt like a condemned man awaiting his sentence. Every second felt like an hour. Suddenly, a soft ding was heard from the private elevator at the far end of the lobby. All activity in the lobby instantly ceased. The busy employees, the receptionist, even the guards at the door, they all stopped, stood a little straighter, and looked toward the elevator. Some even bowed their heads slightly. The VVIP elevator doors slid open. Two personal bodyguards in black suits stepped out first, taking positions on either side. And then, Clara emerged. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He felt like he might die right where he stood. This woman was Clara, but not the Clara he knew. The woman striding toward him was a queen. She wore a premium sapphire blue pantsuit that fit her form perfectly. A silk scarf of the same color framed her sharp features in an elegant, modern style. Her face, once pale with sickness, was now fresh, adorned with subtle but high-end makeup that accentuated her piercing eyes. She walked with an unshakable confidence, her high heels clicking softly but firmly on the marble floor. An aura of power and wealth emanated from her every move. The employees she passed greeted her with deep respect. "Good afternoon, President." Ethan was trembling. "President." Susan immediately approached Clara and bowed her head slightly. "President, he is waiting." Clara nodded, her gaze never leaving Ethan. She walked slowly, each step seemingly crushing what was left of his pride. She stopped exactly 3 feet from the now shaking man. She looked him up and down, from his messy hair to his dirty pajamas and worn-out slippers. Her gaze was cold, analytical, and merciless. "Clara." Ethan could barely whisper. "Yes, Ethan. It's me," Clara said, her voice calm and clear, echoing through the silent lobby. "The sickly, broke woman you abandoned 3 days ago." Ethan couldn't take it anymore. All his strength vanished. His knees buckled. He fell uncontrollably onto the cold marble floor, kneeling at Clara's feet, and broke into gut-wrenching sobs. "Clara, I'm sorry. Please, Clara. I was wrong. I was blind. I sinned against you." Ethan tried to grab the hem of her pants, but his hands were shaking too violently. Everyone in the lobby was frozen, the scene too shocking to comprehend. A hysterical man weeping at the feet of their president. Clara's 2 bodyguards moved to pull Ethan away, but she raised a single hand, a silent command to stop. She wanted him to feel the full weight of this humiliation. "Forgive me, Clara. Give us our house back, please. I'll divorce Valerie. I'll come back and be your husband." "Me?" Clara looked at him with no expression. No pity, no anger, just a cold emptiness. She bent down slightly, not to help him up but to whisper. "Get up," she commanded, her voice soft but absolute. Using his last reserves of strength, Ethan shakily got to his feet, his face a mess of tears and sweat. Clara stared him straight in the eye. "You want to beg?" she asked, her voice now loud enough for those nearby to hear. "Too bad, Ethan. My company, doesn't hire beggars." With that, Clara took a silk handkerchief from her purse. For a fleeting moment, Ethan hoped she might wipe his tears. Instead, she used it to dab at an imaginary speck of dust on her sleeve, as if his presence had soiled her. "My company," Clara said clearly, "does not hire beggars." Having delivered her final verdict, Clara turned elegantly and walked back toward the VVIP elevator. "Susan, take care of him," she said without looking back. "Teach him one last lesson." "Understood, President." The elevator doors closed, and Clara vanished from his sight. Ethan stood there, utterly broken. The public humiliation he had just received from the woman he'd treated like trash was 1,000 times more painful than losing his house and car. Susan approached him. "Come, Mr. Walker. Let's finish this. There's something President Clara wanted to show you." "What more? What else can you take from me?" Ethan cried out in despair. "Not take," Susan said, "but to make you understand just how foolish you've been all this time." The 2 security guards dragged Ethan, this time to a luxurious meeting room on the mezzanine floor. He was thrown into a chair. The room's large glass walls overlooked the lobby, allowing him to see and be seen. In front of him, Susan sat down silently, with 2 men in sharp suits whom Ethan knew were lawyers. He just hung his head, staring at the marble floor. He was defeated. He had nothing. "Mr. Walker," Susan began, her voice calm like a teacher about to lecture a failing student. "You're still confused as to how the wife you treated as useless, poor, and sickly could possibly be the owner of all this." Ethan didn't speak. He had no strength left to answer. Susan pressed a button on the table. A large projector screen descended from the ceiling, and the lights dimmed slightly. The screen lit up with a large title, Clarity Holdings, Business and Financial Report. "Let's begin the lesson, Mr. Walker." "Let's go back 5 years, Susan said. Graphs, income statements, and balance sheets began to appear, billions of dollars in numbers that made Ethan's head spin. 5 years ago, you were just fired from your first job. You were depressed, angry, and blaming the world. While you were busy looking for a new job and mourning your fate, your wife, whom you thought was just a homemaker, started working in the kitchen. Ethan raised his head slightly. Not cooking for you, Susan continued, as if reading his mind. She was formulating skincare products using herbal recipes from her family. When you laughed at her for being on her phone late at night, she was actually processing hundreds of orders from her first customers. When you finally got a new job and started becoming arrogant, she was secretly renting a small office for production. The screen changed. Photos appeared. A photo of a cramped office, then a larger warehouse, then a massive, modern factory, followed by photos of CH branches in New York, Paris, Shanghai, and Tokyo. CH Holdings, Mr. Walker. It stands for Clarity Holdings. Clarity, as in Clara. This company, this building, everything you see is hers. 100%. Ethan was shaking. But how? The funding, the money. The money, Susan smiled mockingly. You always belittled her because she never asked for much, didn't you? You were proud to give her a measly $1,000 monthly allowance, which you'd often cut when you were angry. You called her a beggar. Susan pressed another button. The screen changed. A single, large number appeared in bold. $1,585,816.50. This, Susan emphasized every word, is Miss Clara's monthly personal net income, deposited into an account in her name that you never knew existed. An income greater than the annual salary of your company's CEO, the woman you insulted and threw out for being poor. Ethan felt nauseous. The world was spinning. $1.5 million a month. And your loan, Susan continued. The $3.5 million loan you used to buy that house and sports car. You were so arrogant when the bank approved it, weren't you? A year ago, you were on the brink of bankruptcy due to mismanagement of your side businesses. Your loan became delinquent. The bank was about to repossess your assets, but Miss Clara found out. Through me, CH Holdings bought your entire debt from the bank. We paid it off. Ethan's eyes widened. So, that house and car belonged to CH Holdings a year ago. Yes, Mr. Walker. Miss Clara saved your pride. She let you live there. She let you boast about your fake success. She was still trying to respect you as a husband, hoping you would change. Tears streamed down Ethan's face again, not of remorse, but of agony for his own infinite stupidity. He had thrown out his savior. She knew I was cheating on her, he whispered, horrified. Of course, she knew, Susan said. She knew everything. One of the lawyers now spoke. And now, Mr. Walker, let's look at the evidence. The screen changed again, no longer showing financial graphs, but video recordings. Ethan saw his own living room. He saw himself embracing Valerie on the sofa. The date stamp in the corner showed it was 6 months ago, when Clara had to attend a church meeting. The video changed to their bedroom. Ethan saw Valerie trying on Clara's clothes and scarves, laughing and throwing them on the floor. And Ethan was there, laughing with her. And the final video, the most damning one. 3 days ago, in that same room, Ethan saw himself standing arrogantly before the bed. He saw Clara lying weakly. He heard his own voice, dripping with contempt, echo through the meeting room. Hey, you pathetic, sickly woman. I've taken care of the divorce papers. Get out of this house by tomorrow morning. Enough. Ethan screamed, covering his face. Stop it. Please, stop it. The screen went black. The room was silent again. Hidden cameras, the lawyer said calmly. Installed by Miss Clara a year ago when she first suspected you were having an affair. Ethan was broken. The evidence was irrefutable. He couldn't deny any of it. Clara, is she going to have me arrested? He asked desperately. Initially, that was the plan, Susan said. We had prepared cases for verbal abuse, abandonment, and adultery. Enough to have you rot in prison for several years. Ethan trembled with fear. But, Susan continued, Miss Clara changed her mind. Prison is too comfortable for you. She wants you to experience something far worse than prison. A life of humiliation. Susan placed a thin folder in front of him. This is Miss Clara's official divorce petition. It also includes a claim for moral damages. With trembling hands, Ethan opened it. Miss Clara is not asking for a division of assets. She doesn't want your dirty money. She just took back the house and car that were already hers. But you still have to pay for what you did. Ethan's eyes widened in horror when he saw the amount in the claim. $5 million, he shrieked. I don't have any money. You took everything. Of course, you don't, Susan smiled coldly. But you still have your job, don't you? Oh, I almost forgot. Susan's smile widened. Breaking news, Mr. Walker. An hour ago, CH Holdings finalized the acquisition of a 70% stake in the company you work for. And as the new majority shareholder, President Clara's first order of business was a management reorganization. Your termination letter has been signed. You are officially unemployed. It was the final nail in Ethan's coffin. He had lost everything: house, car, wife, savings, and now his job the source of all his pride. "You're monsters," he screamed, his voice cracking. "We're merely delivering justice," Susan said. "And about that $5 million debt. Miss Clara is very kind. She knows you can't pay it, so she's giving you an option." Susan placed another paper in front of him. "Sign this statement. Confess to everything you did: your infidelity, verbal abuse, and abandonment. If you admit your wrongdoing, the debt will be forgiven." Ethan looked at the confession. It was the last shred of his pride. "Why do you need this?" "Just a guarantee," the lawyer said. "So you don't spread false stories." Ethan had no choice. Unemployed, bankrupt, and homeless. With a shaking hand, he took the pen and signed the document confessing his sins. "It's done," Susan said, quickly taking the papers. Just then, the meeting room door opened. Clara entered again. She stood before the now slumped, defeated Ethan. "You divorced me, Ethan?" Clara asked softly. "You threw the divorce papers in my face while I was sick." She pulled out the same folder Ethan had tossed on her bed, which Susan had saved. In front of Ethan's eyes, Clara slowly tore up the annulment petition he had filed. The pieces of paper fluttered onto his lap. "I am the one divorcing you," Clara said coldly. "And I will make sure you get nothing." She gave him one last look. "Now, get out of my building." The two security guards entered immediately. "Get this trash out of here," Susan ordered. Ethan didn't resist. He was numb. They dragged him by his arms through the crowded lobby. The employees stared with a mixture of pity and contempt. The automatic glass doors opened, and he was thrown once more onto the hot sidewalk. He fell in a heap. No money, no job, no home. Only a set of dirty pajamas and, ironically, a signed confession of his sins that freed him from a debt. His ruin was now absolute. For the second time that day, Ethan was thrown onto the hot pavement. The glass doors of the CH building slid shut behind him, sealing him off from the luxurious world he had just learned belonged to Clara. He coughed, the city dust catching in his throat. His face was a mess of tears, sweat, and now dirt. He didn't move for a long time, his body paralyzed, his mind unable to process the swift and perfect destruction that had just occurred. Fired, bankrupt, dumped by his mistress, and humiliated by the wife he'd considered trash. The confession he signed felt like a death sentence. Passers-by gawked at the man in pajamas, crying in front of a luxury high-rise. A building security guard now stood at the entrance, watching him with a hawk's eye, ensuring he wouldn't try to enter again. Ethan had to move. He couldn't stay there forever. Using what little strength he had left, he staggered to his feet. His knees shook. He began to walk aimlessly. Where could he go? He had no home. He felt his empty pockets. His cracked phone had been left behind in the lobby. He now had nothing but the clothes on his back. His stomach growled. He was hungry. The last time he'd eaten was the tense breakfast with Valerie hours ago. The sun began to set, the air hot and suffocating. He thought of his friends, his party buddies. Maybe he could borrow some money. He walked for miles to a coffee shop where they often met. With shame, he entered. A few of his friends were there. "Ethan? My God, what happened to you?" One of them asked, shocked at his appearance. Ethan told his story, a twisted version of it. "I was set up, man. My accounts are frozen. Can you lend me some cash?" His friend's shocked face turned cold. "Sorry, Ethan. The news just broke in the group chat. You were fired, weren't you? And CH Holdings seized all your assets." Ethan froze. "How did you know?" "Everyone knows. You went up against Clarity Holdings. You're insane." "Sorry, man. I can't help you. I don't want any trouble with CH." He stood up and quickly left. The other friends pretended not to see him. Ethan was left alone in the middle of the coffee shop. The manager asked him to leave. He was back on the street, humiliated. He was a pariah. No one dared associate with him for fear of Clara's shadow. Night fell. Ethan was starving. He ended up sleeping in a closed storefront doorway, using his arms as a pillow, shivering in the cool night air. The buzz of mosquitoes and the smell of the gutter were his only companions. It was his instant karma. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Valerie was panicking. She had escaped Ethan's house with 2 suitcases of clothes and designer bags. She checked into a cheap motel. She started contacting other wealthy men on her list, needing to find a replacement for Ethan quickly. "Hello, Chairman Tan? It's Valerie. I was hoping you weren't busy. We should have dinner," she said flirtatiously into the phone. "Valerie? Who's Valerie?" the man replied. "Oh, Chairman, it's Valerie. We met at the party." "Ah, Valerie. Ethan Walker's bankrupt girlfriend. Right." The man's tone changed instantly. "Sorry, I'm busy. Don't call this number again." He hung up. Valerie was stunned. She tried another number. The same response. The news of Ethan's downfall had spread like wildfire, and her name was attached to it. She was the woman the man was with when he fell. She was the disgraced mistress. Her reputation among the city's elite was ruined. No one wanted anything to do with her. Unfortunately, her bad luck didn't end there. As she was moping in her motel room, there was a knock on the door. 2 men in sharp suits stood there. "Miss Valerie? We're from Pierce, Roth and Associates. You've been served." Valerie's heart stopped. With trembling hands, she accepted the subpoena. Clara was suing her. The charges were adultery, defamation, and destruction of private property. Clara was demanding $5 million in damages. $5 million, she shrieked hysterically. She didn't have that kind of money. All her bags and clothes were gifts from Ethan. The following days were a nightmare for the 2 villains. Valerie ran out of money. Unable to afford a lawyer, she began selling her designer bags one by one for pennies on the dollar just to survive and pay for the motel. As for Ethan, after 3 days of hunger and sleeping on the streets, he finally swallowed his pride. He needed to eat. He walked to the warehouse district where day laborers worked. His once handsome face was now grimy, a rough beard starting to grow. "Boss, you need a hand?" he asked a foreman. The foreman looked him up and down. "You look soft. Can you lift a 100-pound sack of rice?" "I'm strong, boss. I just need to eat," Ethan pleaded, his voice cracking. "Move those sacks of rice over to that truck. I'll pay you $15 a pallet," the foreman said. And so began Ethan's new life. The man who once wore designer suits and drove a sports car now sweated under the sun, hauling heavy sacks that weighed dozens of pounds. His once toned body was now gaunt. His skin was burned, dark, and dirty. His muscles bulged not from the gym, but from forced labor. His back ached constantly, and his hands were calloused and often bloody. He had long forgotten the scent of clean clothes or expensive cologne. All he knew was the smell of sweat, market garbage, and cheap cigarettes. What happened to Valerie? Ethan no longer cared. The last he'd heard from fellow workers was that Valerie, after losing the case against Clara, was buried in debt. To survive, she became a cocktail waitress in a seedy bar. Rumor had it she'd been arrested in a raid a few weeks ago. Her fate was worse than simple poverty. She was ruined. Ethan felt no pity. He felt nothing. His heart was dead. He worked like a machine. Lift, get paid, buy rice, sleep. That was the cycle of his life now. That afternoon, after 12 hours of nonstop work, Ethan received his pay, $120 in crumpled bills. He trudged out of the market, dragging his aching legs. He stopped at his usual cheap food stall. Rice and some stew. To go, holding the plastic bag of food. He walked to a large intersection and sat on the dirty curb, leaning against a traffic light pole. He opened the bag for his one meal of the day. Across the street, a giant video screen on the side of a skyscraper suddenly lit up, showing a live broadcast of a business news program. Ethan stopped eating. His plastic spoon hovered in midair. On that giant screen was Clara's face. It was a live broadcast from CH's global launch event that morning. Clara's immaculate, calm, and regal face filled the 30-foot screen. A foreign reporter asked in English, with subtitles on the screen, "President Clara, you are now one of the wealthiest and most influential women in Asia. What is the secret to your success?" Ethan held his breath. He saw Clara smile slightly. "There is no secret," she answered, her voice ringing out clearly across the entire intersection. "I just never stopped working. I never stopped believing in my abilities. Even when the person closest to me looked down on me and called me useless." The bag of food fell from Ethan's hands. The rice and stew spilled onto the grimy sidewalk. But he didn't care. His eyes were glued to the screen. Up there, the woman he had called sickly and broke was being interviewed as a global business queen. And down here, on the pavement, the man who had called himself a king sat like a beggar, staring at his dinner mixing with the dust. Ethan bowed his head low. He didn't cry. He just laughed a dry, hollow laugh, full of despair. He was defeated. He hadn't just lost his wealth. He hadn't just lost his position. He had lost everything. The woman he had left now held the world in her hands. And he had nothing, not even the pride to pick up his spilled rice. Karma had completed its mission,